Gap. On October 6, 2010, clothing retailer Gap, a company with 3,000 stores in 40 countries, revealed a new logo. The old one had been in use for 20 years. Dark blue square with the word Gap in white serif lettering, recognized worldwide, printed on a billion shopping bags. The new one was the word Gap in black Helvetica with a tiny blue square floating behind the letter P. It looked like someone's first attempt at a logo using a free trial of Photoshop. One designer called it completely embarrassing, another compared it to clip art. Over 2,000 protests hit Gap's Facebook page in the first 24 hours. A parody website went up where anyone could generate their own version, and within days, over 14,000 fake Gap logos were circulating online. Gap spent an estimated $100 million on this rebrand. It lasted 6 days. On October 12th, the company quietly went back to the old logo and pretended nothing happened. Vanity Fair published an obituary for the new design. Cause of death, the internet. $100 million in 6 days. That is the speed record for killing a brand, and somehow it is the least expensive failure in this video. Tropicana. Gap lost money on a logo. Tropicana lost money because people could not find their own juice. In January 2009, Tropicana, which was doing over $700 million a year in orange juice sales, hired an ad agency and spent $35 million redesigning the packaging for Tropicana Pure Premium. The original carton had a bright orange with a straw stuck into it. Instantly recognizable, had been on shelves for over 50 years. The new design replaced the orange with a generic glass of juice, shrunk the logo, rotated the brand name sideways, and stripped the entire carton down to a clean white minimalist look. The result was that Tropicana's best-selling product now looked identical to a store brand juice. Shoppers walked past it in grocery aisles without realizing it was Tropicana. They didn't reject the new design. They literally couldn't see it. Within 2 months, sales dropped 20%. $30 million in lost revenue. Meanwhile, competitors like Simply Orange and Minute Maid picked up every customer Tropicana's own packaging had chased away. Tropicana reversed the redesign in under 2 months. Total damage between the $35 million spent on the rebrand and the $30 million in lost sales came to more than $50 million. To make the orange juice carton look worse. And then in 2024, Tropicana did it again. Changed the bottle shape. Smaller size, generic look. Sales dropped 8%, then 10%, then 19% by October. The company that already owns the most famous example of a failed rebrand in marketing history went back and did the exact same thing 15 years later. Royal Mail to Consignia. The British Postal Service has operated under the name Royal Mail since 1635, 366 years, older than the United States. In 2001, the CEO decided the name was too limiting and rebranded it to Consignia. The BBC called it a duffer and a howling waste of money. The public couldn't pronounce it. The Postal Workers Union told 300,000 employees to boycott the name and keep calling it Royal Mail. 16 months later, the company changed it back. Total cost of rebranding to Consignia and then rebranding away from it, £2.5 million. The CEO who approved the rebrand didn't survive it either. He was replaced by a man who called Consignia to the press on the record, rubbish. If any of this is changing how you see the brands around you, subscribe, because the rest of this video involves significantly more money and significantly worse decisions. Weight Watchers to WWs. Every rebrand so far was reversed. This one wasn't, and the company no longer exists. In September 2018, Weight Watchers announced it was changing its name to WW, not an abbreviation for anything, just 2 letters. The new tagline was "Wellness That Works," which is what happens when a marketing team discovers alliteration and doesn't know when to stop. The idea was to move beyond dieting and become a holistic wellness brand. The problem was that Weight Watchers was the single most recognized name in the diet industry, and the company had just renamed itself to 2 letters that no one could remember what they stood for. At the time of the rebrand, the stock was trading at $100 a share. The company had a $6 billion market cap and 4.4 million members. Oprah Winfrey had invested $43 million and served on the board. Her endorsement in 2015 had sent shares up 90% in a single day. After the rebrand, membership dropped. The company forecast a 10% decline in the critical January diet season. Shares fell 35% in a single day, erasing $48 million from Oprah's stake alone. By 2024, WW stock had fallen from $100 to under $2 a share. Then, Oprah left the board, announced she'd been using Ozempic, and donated all her shares to a museum. The company that renamed itself to distance itself from dieting was abandoned by its most famous spokesperson, who left because she found a better way to diet. In May 2025, WW filed for bankruptcy. $6 billion in market cap, gone. Name recognition built over 60 years, gone. Oprah, gone. And a company that was the gold standard of an entire industry reduced to two letters that nobody could connect to anything. Twitter to X. Every rebrand so far was done for a reason. Bad reasons, confused reasons, but reasons. This one was done on a Sunday night, on July 23, 2023. 9 months after paying $44 billion for Twitter, Elon Musk announced that the platform would be renamed X. The blue bird logo, one of the most recognized symbols in technology, was being replaced with a letter, the word tweet, which had entered the dictionary and become one of the few brand names in history to become a verb, was being erased. No consumer research, no transition period, no warning. Analysts estimated the rebrand destroyed between $4 and $20 billion in brand value overnight. Brand Finance tracked Twitter's brand value from $5.7 billion in 2022 to $673 million by 2024, an 88% decline. Advertising revenue, which made up 90% of the company's income, dropped over 50%. Apple, Disney, IBM, and Paramount all paused spending. Twitter's revenue fell from a $5 billion peak in 2021 to $2.5 billion by 2024. Fidelity estimated the entire company's value had dropped 79% from what Musk paid, and the name never stuck. Surveys showed the majority of users still called the platform Twitter. Journalists were instructed to write X, formerly known as Twitter, which is the corporate equivalent of introducing yourself at a party by saying, "Hi, I'm Steve. I used to be more interesting." $44 billion. The word tweet entered the dictionary, entered the culture, and became a reflex for 350 million people. And one person decided, on a weekend, that all of it should be called X, a name shared by almost 900 other trademarked companies in the United States alone. Facebook to Meta. Everything before this was a company that changed its name. This is a company that changed its name, its identity, its mission, and then spent more money than most countries defending the decision. On October 28, 2021, Mark Zuckerberg announced that Facebook, the company used by 3.5 billion people, the company whose name had been synonymous with social media for 17 years, would now be called Meta. The future, according to Zuckerberg, was the metaverse, a virtual world where people would work, socialize, and shop inside headsets. The entire company was being reoriented around this vision. This was not a logo swap. This was not a name refresh. This was one of the most recognized companies on Earth betting its entire identity on a product category that did not yet exist for a consumer who had not yet asked for it. Since the rebrand, Meta's Reality Labs division has reported over $80 billion in cumulative operating losses. The virtual world it renamed itself after never attracted a meaningful audience. The flagship social platform, Horizon Worlds, peaked with fewer than 300,000 monthly users and couldn't render legs on its avatars. In January 2026, Meta laid off 1,000 Reality Labs employees and slashed the metaverse budget by 30%. During Meta's most recent earnings call, the word metaverse was not spoken. The company now positions the name Meta as being about artificial intelligence. The man who renamed his company after one future quietly started pretending the name was always about a different one. $80 billion. That is the cost of renaming a company everyone knew after a product nobody wanted. Every other rebrand in this video combined does not approach a single year of what Meta spent failing to justify the name it chose. Every company in this video made the same mistake. They looked at a name people trusted, a design people recognized, a word people used without thinking, and decided it wasn't enough. That the thing millions of people already reached for needed to become something those people never asked for. A rebrand fails the moment it stops being about the customer and starts being about the boardroom. The logo was never the problem. The name was never the problem. The problem was always a room full of people who got bored of their own brand before their customers did. If this changed how you think about the next rebrand you see, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because the next company to learn this lesson, the expensive way, is probably already in a meeting right now.